Hello, Seekers. Thank you for joining me. Today, I have the best news ever to share with you. It's a new discovery that I've just found in hearing the parable of Jesus talking about the wheat and the weeds that grow. So, here we are. It's the summertime. If you're out in the country at all and you see the farmer's fields, you see the corn is growing, the wheat is growing. And after listening to this parable, I really looked at the wheat. And I did see the weeds growing, usually pretty tall, over the wheat in the middle of the field. And it brought this parable to life for me in a whole new way that I just had to share it with you. So thanks for tuning in. You know, a lot of the time in Scripture, Jesus spoke in parables. Why is that? I think he is just piquing our curiosity, that desire that's in all of us to understand, to grow deeper in our faith, and to learn more. And the only way that we can have true revelation or true knowledge is to really spend some time with it and figure it out on our own. And what's so amazing about this holy book is the Scripture gives us all the tools we need for that peace and freedom and rest that our souls long for. So let's dig a little deeper. In Matthew 13, it talks about parables, and it actually states that Jesus said in line 35, parables, this was to fulfill what was spoken by the prophet. I will speak to you in parables, unfold what has been hidden since the foundation of the world. For some reason, it is God's desire for us to reach out to him. He has so many things that he offers us, but we need to do the work as well as a partner. We are in relationship with the divine. Isn't that the best news ever? However, that's not the little truth that I discovered. We're going to get to that. So let's read in Matthew 13, starting at line 24, about this parable of the wheat and the weeds. The kingdom of heaven may be likened to a man who sowed good seed in his field. While everyone was asleep, his enemy came and sowed weeds all through the wheat and then went off. When the crop grew and bore fruit, the weeds appeared as well. The slaves of the householder came to him and said, Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? Where have those weeds come from? He answered, An enemy has done this. His slaves said to him, Do you want us to go and pull them up? And he replied, No. If you pull up the weeds, you might uproot the wheat along with them. Let them grow together until harvest. Then at the harvest time, I will say to the harvesters, First, collect the weeds and tie them in bundles for burning, but gather the wheat into my barn. So if we can break open this scripture a little bit. At line 25, it says, While everyone was asleep, his enemy came and sowed weeds all through the wheat. In my life, I am like that farmer, growing wheat by the good things I do, I say, the way I treat other people, the daily choices I make to show love and kindness to others. And yet, there are things that come in like a weed and interrupt my growing. They distract me. It really hit me when I focused on the slaves asking in line 28, Do you want us to go and pull them up? Well, if any of you have ever tended a garden, you know what it's like when it gets full of weeds. You want the flowers to be there, yes, not the weeds. And you pull and you pull and you take them out. And as fast it seems as you get rid of them, they're back there again. And sometimes you miss some. And then a couple weeks go by and this weed is a giant thing right in the middle of your garden and you don't even understand how you didn't see it to take it out. This is a common problem, which is why Jesus was using it as a teaching for the crowd. He said he doesn't want the slaves to pull up the weeds, that they might uproot the wheat. If we go around to others ripping out their weeds, it could uproot the goodness that they are trying to grow. Just the same as if I just went and took everything out of my garden that I think that's a weed, that's a weed, that's a weed. I might be pulling up some flowers too. Sometimes you just have to let it grow until you know for certain. And even then, by uprooting the weed, you might damage your crop in the process. So what are we supposed to do? Well, again, the parable says, let them grow together until at harvest time. First, the weeds will be collected for burning, and then we will gather the wheat into the barn. I am doing my very best to live my best life and to follow Jesus' way. And I listen for the whispers of the Spirit to guide me. But all too often I am affected by what others say and do and how I am treated. And very quickly I can look at them and say, oh, that's a weed that's growing in them. They shouldn't do that. They shouldn't act like that. They should know better. And all of a sudden I have this self-righteousness that begins to grow. And I think, well, at least my garden doesn't have as many weeds as their garden. That gives me a false sense of control or security. And I heard very clearly to me that it's not my job to point out the weeds in others. It's helpful for me to be able to recognize, okay, I shouldn't act like that. I don't want to treat people like that the way they are. I don't want to act like that. But it's not my job to treat the other person in a way for them to be corrected, to point out their weed, or to talk about, look at their garden, to other people. That's not my job. I saw in myself a form of judging that prevents me from connecting with the divine. And it also brought to mind to me a scripture that's also in Matthew chapter 7 about judging others. Stop judging that you may not be judged. For as you judge, so will you be judged, and the measure with which you measure will be measured out to you. Why do you notice the splinter in your brother's eye when you do not perceive the wooden beam in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me remove that splinter from your eye, while the wooden beam is in your eye? You hypocrite! Remove the wooden beam from your eye first, then you will see clearly to remove the splinter from your brother's eye. You will see clearly. What I saw clearly from that parable was the master says, leave the weeds alone. I am in charge of the crop. I am in charge of the harvest. The battle that these other people, or the work that they have to endure to get those weeds out of their garden, out of their harvest, that's their work to do. I need to focus on my work. And that's where the peace and the freedom comes in. And also the idea of forgiveness. That, I'm not going to get every weed. And the Master says it's okay. When you come to me with your crop, with your harvest, I'm going to take those weeds, he said, and they're just going to be tossed to the side and burned. And all that you have grown will be put into the barn for safekeeping. I need to focus on my harvest. Pretty amazing. So the best news ever is, what if I were to tell you that we could live a life where we are detached from what other people say and do to us? It doesn't have to affect us, because I know, I'm trusting the Master that he's helping them tend their garden. I don't have to let that hurt or their judgment come at me. I can walk with him knowing I'm doing the work. I'm following after him. I'm seeking his presence. And he meets me there. So I want to share this song with you. And I hope it speaks to you about this new understanding that Jesus has already done the work for us. If you're weary or burdened and you have nothing left, be open to the best news ever.
Some say, push on through. Don't buy on this further from the truth. What if I was the one to tell you that the fight's already been won? Well, I think your day's about to get better. What if I was the one to tell you that the work's already been done? It's not good news, it's the best news ever. Some say don't ask for help. God helps the ones who help themselves. So press on, get it right. Otherwise, get left behind. Some say he's even so. So try hard and try and then hold up. If this were true, explain to me what the cross is for. What if I was the one to tell you that the fight's already been won? Well, I think your day's about to get better. What if I was the one to tell you that the work's already been done? It's not good news, it's the best news ever. Best news ever. Come on, you weary and you burden, you heavy laden, you hurting. For all of you with nothing left, come and find. What if I was the one to tell you that the fight's already been won? Well, I think your day's about to get better. What if I was the one to tell you that the work's already been done? It's not good news, it's the best news ever. Best news ever. It's not good news, it's the best news ever. Best news ever. It's not good news, it's the best news ever.
So the best news ever is that we can live in peace. I have weeds growing in my garden. I do my best to deal with them, and Jesus says he'll handle the rest. That is the best news ever. And now when I see others around me who might be ridiculing me, making things difficult at times, or being caught up in their own distress and not acting properly, I can step back and not be offended, because I can see that they're doing their work. They're growing just as I am growing. And as the Lord walks with me, he'll walk with you too. And that really is, like the song said, the best news ever. So seekers, remember, yes, the summer is here, and we have work to do, but that's okay. The Master is with us, and the harvest will be ours. Now go and shine your light. See you soon.